The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
This is the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun on AM 950. Tonight we're going to play parts of interviews from 3 different guests. We've had some amazing people appear on the show, and we think that they should be heard from again. Enjoy the show. We have on author Robert K. Wilcox. We've been talking about the truth about the Shroud of Turin. We've been talking about just kind of the background of this. What are we calling this, Robert? I keep wanting to call it like a cloak, a garment. It's none of those. It's linen. What am I trying to say here?
Yeah, the Shroud of Turin. It is a 14-foot length of linen cloth.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah,
it's linen cloth, and it's in a herringbone type of design, I guess, which is very what they had in Jerusalem and around the Middle East at 2,000 years ago. So that's another discussion, is whether or not it's the right cloth, but it is. And that
was a big debate, though, wasn't it, for a number of years? Because and correct me if I'm wrong, there was carbon dating done to the cloth, but didn't they not grab samples mainly from the area that had been fixed
exactly,
in a fire?
Exactly. Yeah, that was a big deal. I remember I had written my first book, which was published by Macmillan, about the Shroud, and I was pretty much believing, as I do now, that the Shroud is the real deal, that it really wrapped Jesus and it has evidence of resurrection. But at that time, there had been a study on the Shroud. They were allowed some scientists, a whole bunch of scientists, they called themselves Stirrup. I forget what it means, but they had done a study of the Shroud and had, for instance, found there's absolutely absolutely no paint on it at all, as a stroke. You know, there were some little tiny little. So anyway, that was one of the things they had done, and then they were asked to provide this group of people who were really very anti-Shroud people with a piece of the cloth. And they gave them a piece that was off of the very end of the Shroud. And it was found to be in the 13th century, or the 14th century, 1300 somethings, which is right when we could actually put it back there. And they got on TV and said the Shroud is a hoax and so on. And slowly it came to light that they had taken a piece off of a patch into the Shroud, that's what they had dated, which did come from what's the 15th or 13th century, whatever it was that they had said that it was. And that was that they folded into the woodwork.
They disappeared after that. No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to talk about a couple things. And forgive me if I jump around a little bit, because there's a couple things I want to kind of get to here.
Sure.
I'll do my best to try to keep it coherent. So obviously, does the Catholic Church recognize this as Jesus's burial linen?
Not officially, but does one guy next to the Pope believe it? Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't done it officially, but they've done so much for it now. They took it out of it. At one time I was the only I was the only person who had color photos of the Shroud.
No.
And the reason was, in 1973 I went to an exposition of the Shroud. These were only held at great moments it was owned by the king, not by the church.
Okay.
And I got so close to it, I said, gee, somebody could throw a match on it and blow it up. But what I was getting to is they have now put it into a great vacuum-sealed thing that nobody can get to, because the Shroud has been through so many things in its history where it could have been destroyed, but it wasn't. But anyway, that was, I forget what we were talking about, but they've put it into this, they've put it into this cocoon almost now.
Yeah.
It has the airs and everything else, and that's so the church, in Rome now. And by the way, it's back. It was given back to the church about 10 years ago or something, because the King of Italy, who owned it and had given it, had taken care of it. He gave it to the church. They are doing all of these things to keep it preserved. So the answer to your question really is, they're not putting it down on paper and announcing it from the heavens and so on, but they really do believe it, and they realize that this could be the ultimate show of truth of Christianity. So
it's very interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never seen it in person. But if I am not mistaken, that the seeing it with your own eyes, the imprint of the man there is extraordinarily faint, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. You've done your homework there, because when you look at it, the closer you are to it, the less you can see of it, because it's this very subtle darkening and lightening of the cloth that makes the image, and that says what is really so interesting about it, that the image is made by a darkening or lightening of the fibers in the linen in an infinitesimal way. Each thread actually has many threads in it, and each one of those is I don't want to say singed. No, they are affected with color, either lighter or darker, in a very minute way around each thread, which you and I couldn't even hold.
Right.
Something did to that, and nowadays I think they're getting close to saying it was some sort of cold nuclear explosion, but that's a bad term to use. But there are such things as that would give this kind of blast of heat or light very minutely, that would make this kind of uniform impression, or making so that you can see the image in the negative.
And it's also like, and this is what's so amazing about it. It's obviously a huge rush of energy that creates this imprint on this linen, in my opinion, the way I see it. But it clearly doesn't do anything to which you would think would damage the linen itself. The only damage that's come to it had been the fire, centuries later. So, it's like there's something, and I get your point when you say the word nuclear, where it's just like it kind of some kind of like instant flash that imprints what's happening.
Yes. instant cold flash.
Sure.
And I was I just recently was reading something about the Shroud, and there are some people who think that that's what it is. I forget the name of a cold type of nuclear work, but it has to do with something happening, and it could have done that. But the thing that is so incredible is how precise every one of these millions of fibers on the Shroud are exactly impacted the same way.
So it's even.
You can make a 3D image out of the Shroud of Turin. Now that's one of those things with a space age type mechanism. It's called a VP8 image analyzer. That's the kind of thing where you can turn the Shroud around, you can turn the man in the Shroud around,
Sure.
and look at him.
I see what you're
and
saying.
He has. You can't do that with photographs.
No.
You can't do that with painting.
So one of the things too, like it can't be lightning because I'm like, it can't be lightning because I'm going off of my religious belief that he's in some sort of burial stone, but we don't know. I mean, we would assume that regardless because that was the way it worked back then, but we don't know that for certain, though, do we?
Well, lightning would have destroyed the flow.
That's true as well.
It would knock it out. Whatever did this, its power was light. And I don't mean just light like you get from a light bulb, but I mean light, it's tiny. Its power was tiny in that sense. And I understand that in some atom-type understanding that you can have that in a, for lack of a better word, a flash of that light.
Sure.
It would be like cold light.
Absolutely. I do have a question from the comments here. Richie B says, is it a divine method that makes the image or scientific?
Well, that's how you want to look at it. In my opinion, this is evidence of the resurrection.
Yeah.
So I tell you that it's a theological thing. But science has worked this thing over. And the best they can say is it's indecipherable. It's unexplainable. So you can take your pick.
And I think it's interesting because I think that alone, and everyone's going to have their own opinion on religion or anything else, but that piece alone is what I think you can define as a leap of faith in a sense that you could be like, I choose to believe that this is what it is, and that's part of what I think. Sure. I think there's a difference between religion and faith, in my personal opinion. That you're like and I'm actually Robert. Just so you know, I'm right there with you. The idea of that I choose because there hasn't been anything presented to me that makes me think otherwise. Exactly.
Listen, if this was the Shroud of Aristotle, everybody would be on board.
Right.
This is a problem because it's a religious thing. But listen, in my book, it covers the whole gamut. But in the last 100 years, literally thousands of scientists have gone over this, and they just don't have a problem with it. It's real blood. It's a real body. We can see everything is like that. So we're definitely the burden of proof is now on the doubters.
Absolutely, and Richie B has another question. I was kind of asked something similar to this. He says, so it wouldn't happen to your eye or any other human. And I guess my question, if I can kind of jump off of that, we've never found anything close to this ever, have we, to our knowledge?
Not that I know of, and not to our knowledge, no. I've done enough research. There's nothing like this. There is nothing like this. It's as I said, you can make a 3D image out of it. Where does that come from? And this cloth is at least 500, 600 years old.
You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to GhostBoxRadio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Welcome to the night where the paranormal unite. A party like never before under the moon's airy light. The vibe is dark, the air is cold, spirits taking flight. Get haunted and ghost and magazine leading the fright. Ghosts and ghouls dancing hand in hand. Lost souls roaming the haunted land. On the battleship New Jersey we gather with glee. Horror and paranormal, a sight to see.
Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But, if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Gritty Gear Company is a great place to go for clothing that is fun and expressive, but did you know we also do custom orders on demand? We've worked with all types of companies and organizations, from first responders to even a certain radio station. Our team is here to help you look amazing. Our clothing is of the highest quality, and you will love your logo on the finished product. We are a locally owned small business who simply wants you to look great. Find out more at grittygearcompany.com.
We know you value buying local, especially when it comes to your magical supplies. So if you're looking for grimoires, decks, jewelry, candles, or herbs that are locally sourced, then come on down to Magus Books and Herbs. Curated for your ritual, ceremonial, spiritual, and spellwork needs, we've got all the tools to make your working extra. So make that prosperity ritual one that keeps on giving by visiting us at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis, or visit us online at magusbooks.com.
Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And we have with us author Steve Sheinkin. We've been talking about the grave robbing of Abraham Lincoln. And Steve, there's a couple comments I'd like to read for you. I think they're really good comments, and I think they're spot on. First of all, Emily says that it sounds like that they were just absolutely desperate. Their main moneymaker literally was incarcerated. Desperate people do desperate things. I mean, absolutely. You know, it's like I joke to you that, the kind of buffoonery, but it is probably to the point. They're like, what are we going to do? We don't have anyone like this around.
Yeah, I think that point is spot on. And of course, there were other artists, other people who could make the money, and they would do it by... It was pretty low tech in those days. They would just, engrave onto metal plates. So however good, your art was, that's how good the bills turned out if you had the good paper and ink. And so you're right. They could get other people, but they weren't the same. This guy was just really talented. He probably should have used his artistic skill. And one of the funniest parts of the story, there are many, is that he had no idea this was going on. This guy, his name was Benjamin Boyd, and he only found out afterward that this had been happening, and so he it wasn't like he was sitting there waiting to be sprung out of jail.
That's fun. I never even thought about that. Yeah, he didn't know. That's incredible, and I can imagine that there was probably just a lot of really crappy counterfeit versions of money out there back then, weren't there? I can just imagine that.
That's a fascinating subject too. But yes, and apparently the government, the federal government, only really started printing money during the Civil War, and so very recently to this story. And it was easy to counterfeit. It wasn't like today where you can look up and see these anti-counterfeiting holographic images inside. Of course, they didn't have that sort of technology. It was just ink and paper. And apparently there was a point where it was almost half the money in circulation might have been fake. And the whole reason that the Secret Service was founded, this is a good trivia question to people who think they know a lot about history, was not to protect presidents. In fact, it wasn't until the third assassination that anybody bothered protecting the president. It was to fight counterfeiting. The Secret Service was founded as a counterfeiting police force. And so the cops in this story are Secret Service agents.
That's really interesting. Was paper money even the same in it wasn't, am I misremembering that it wasn't the same design across the country as it were back then? Wasn't it different designs in different areas as well? Or was it?
They had different. This was the beginning of when they started to kind of regulate that and make. Here's what a U.S. $20 bill looks like, and you can go online and see the designs. They're beautiful. They're really elaborately designed. So it would be a very hard. I jokingly say it's an art project, but it's a hard one though.
Right, and I suppose they made them very intricate and designed so that they could really try to cut down on the counterfeiting, because not everyone can do that sort of thing.
That's right, and like you said, most of it was really bad. People would even just misspell Philadelphia or something. Just really obvious things.
I'm not sure if I could spell it. So
there you go.
And I see people calling in, and I can't take calls tonight because it's just me. But if you want to go to on Facebook, GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, we're streaming this live on there. You can put your questions in the comments. And then Lisa says that is a good old-fashioned jailbreak above their pay grade. And I suppose that this seemed doable, stealing Lincoln's body, opposed to trying to break somebody out of prison.
Now Lisa, that's a great question. Of course, you would have thought that, all right, if they're that desperate, then why not, try to bribe a guard, dig a tunnel if you're that desperate, do something at least that could theoretically work. But thankfully, if you love weird, gruesome, creepy stories, I'm glad they didn't do that.
And of course, they're all attached to Lincoln somehow. And then also, I want to talk just a little bit. So this mausoleum, and thank you, Chuck, for telling me the word I was missing when I was trying to explain it earlier. This was in Springfield, Illinois. And the idea of where to put Lincoln was also a big ordeal, kind of led because of Mary Todd Lincoln, her insistence, and she made no friends during this part of the story at all.
Yeah, the body was, like you said, there was almost something sacred about it. Well, it was to many people. And you can even go easily online and find pictures of the open casket because, all right, everyone knows he was killed in Washington. And then they took his body back by train, but it took 2 weeks. They took their time.
Yeah, they did.
Bringing it back through the Northeast and Midwest. And people, thousands and thousands of people lined the railroad all the way. And they kept, again, gruesome details, which are always good in a story, but they kept the coffin. They embalmed it really, really well for the time. And they even had a makeup artist come along with them to keep him looking as best as he could, under the circumstances. And it wasn't until they got to Springfield that they closed it. And actually they put the body, and this is significant because it came up years later, but they put the body inside an airtight lead coffin, and then that went inside the more elaborate marble sarcophagus.
Now, if I remember correctly, a couple things. Number one, I forget the gentleman's name, high-ranking official that was in charge of the whole train trip. That he was absolutely dead set against anyone trying to take a picture of Lincoln. So the one that we do have is one that he was very upset that got out because they didn't want any pictures, from my understanding, pictures of Lincoln lying in state. And then secondly, if I'm not mistaken, there's a picture of the funeral procession that's traveling across America, that there is in one of the pictures like a baby Theodore Roosevelt.
I remember reading that too. Maybe when they're going through New York City.
Yeah.
He's in the window of his apartment building.
Exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't an apartment building. Of course, they were wealthy. It would have been a fancy brownstone. But yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, there's. I mean, it's just it's so weird because you have that picture. You have the picture of when Lincoln was being sworn in for his second term. That John Wilkes Booth is in that picture. There's just some real. I mean, this is why I cannot get enough of Lincoln. There is so many synchronicities and so many interesting things to it. Have you seen on Discovery Plus, and I bore everybody with this, the documentary called "The Last Photo of Abraham Lincoln," where it's this photo that is said to be of him dead in the bed where they took him across the street from Ford Theater, where he died the next morning. That the people upstairs, they were photographers just staying there, and that they were able to get in and take this picture when nobody was there because the person guarding the room at the time after he passed, they kind of made it work, and that the whole thing is about, could this possibly be real? It's hotly contested. But it's a very interesting documentary on it, and those pictures of him, that one picture of him laying in his coffin that no one should have taken but did, that looks like Lincoln. This other picture really doesn't look like Lincoln, but it looks like a man that's dead. It's such an interesting thing.
I'm making the note just to look that up because I'm like you, I'm obsessed with this stuff too. But I know I don't know that story. this story has so many, you kind of hinted at it. It has so many epilogues and weird twists because the body was moved around a lot over the years after this grave robbing attempt. They were really worried that someone might try again.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really buried again or into a permanent spot until I think it was 1901. And they did look, just to bring it back full circle, they did open his coffin at that time and look to make sure he was still in there. Yeah,
they did. And there was a young boy, if I'm not mistaken, that was, you know what I'm talking about, right? That was there. That
I put that in the very end of my. Yeah, you just can't make this stuff up. But yeah, there were people again who lived in Springfield, who knew Lincoln. So all right, they decided we're going to go out to the cemetery. We're going to look. We're going to open up. And the lead coffin was key because it was airtight. It really kept the body preserved, or they hoped it was. They didn't know what they were going to see. But yeah, one of the guys who had known Lincoln, middle-aged guy, but he had a son who was like 12 years old, something like that, and used a telephone, pretty new invention in those days, but he called to the kid's school and said, you got to get on your bicycle and ride. You got to get down to the cemetery. There's something really, you got to see this. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And he was a kid who lived until fairly recently, but he was there when they opened. They actually got a plumber to do it because it was working with lead, almost like working with a lead pipe.
Yeah.
And he used his tools. He opened it, and they said, just what you said, he looked just like they remembered. He looked like a statue of himself.
Because he's bronzen, right?
Yeah, it was so well preserved that they just couldn't believe how, you couldn't say he looked well, but I mean, how well preserved and how much just like they remembered him, he still looked.
So incredible. So then from there, they. And that's the thing that you and I were talking about. I mean, before this opening, you and I were talking before the show about how, kind of in a way, Lincoln's body was kind of in plain sight for 20-some years. But no one knew because they were trying to hide it in the least likely place that someone would go and look to steal it again.
That's right. And they really were worried. I mean, these guys did, like we said, they got farther than they should have. They really did break open the coffin. I mean, I guess I'll give a spoiler and say they didn't actually make it away with the body. They were arrested. I mean, it had, from a storytelling standpoint, everything you could want. There was a shootout in the graveyard. The guys got away temporarily, but they did stupid things. You know, they went right back to their saloon in Chicago because they didn't know where else to go. And so, of course, the police were watching that and arrested them. And so after it all, they went to jail, not for very long because it technically wasn't a very serious crime in terms of laws on the books.
Yeah.
But they were, the caretakers of the monument were very worried that someone would do this again. And so they kind of put together a volunteer guard. There was no sort of official rangers to take care of this monument, but they were you're right, they kept the body in the basement. They kept moving it around, kind of misleading people about where exactly it was because they knew it just wasn't secure.
It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And and then when they do finally, after like that 12-year-old boy gets to see that moment, and it truly is the last time any of us would ever have a possibility of seeing Lincoln or even his casket, because they really took care of it after that.
Yeah, they were really worried about this happening again. It may seem strange to us now, but if you look at a picture of the monument, you'll see it's kind of on a grassy hill. And what they did is just bury a hole. They dug a hole on the side of that hill and buried it in an unmarked spot. They even put it under wet concrete and just let it harden over the casket, and then grew the grass back over it again so it was unmarked. And that's how worried they were that somebody would try to do this again.
No one's going to be able to get to him ever again.
No, with any sort of security, of course, you could never get into it now. No. Would anyone try that again? Of course, today it would be, I don't know, it would be, 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 you like to think it would be impossible, but yeah, I don't think anyone would try that.
You never know.
Yeah.
I got in the comments a couple people talking about the synchronicities between Lincoln and Kennedy. And Steve, I don't know about you. I know that there are some. I've never actually fact-checked them because I know this is one of those things that really is open for a lot of rumors and I'm not saying that the folks putting it into the chat are insinuating that, but I get kind of leery about putting that in. I don't know enough about it to actually talk about it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I remember hearing about it though, even in high school, and being fascinated by some of the links, just some of the common coincidences between names and that are involved in the stories, and so yeah, there's probably people in those comments who know a lot more than we do about.
You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to GhostBoxRadio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We'll be back with another guest after the break. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Twin Cities Con returns to the Minneapolis Convention Center for their fourth year, November 8th through 10th. Twin Cities Con is a celebration of comics, toys, TV, film, art, cosplay, games, and all things nerdy. It's also a family-friendly event where you can meet your favorite celebrities, browse the vendor hall and artist alley for the coolest merch, watch celebrity Q&A, and even more. Twin Cities Con is bigger and better than ever before, with guests like Anakin Skywalker himself, Hayden Christensen, Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Encanto, WWE Hall of Fame wrestler Sting, and Lou Diamond Phillips. Plus, your favorite voice actors. 3 days of action-packed fun in the heart of Minneapolis at the Minneapolis Convention Center. Tickets start at $25. Kids tickets are just $8 for the entire weekend. VIP tickets also available, including some really cool VIP perks. Don't wait to get your tickets because early bird pricing is for a limited time. Buy your tickets and get more information at TwinCitiesCon.com. Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Recently, I had a large order of custom designed t-shirts that needed to be turned around in a hurry. I knew exactly who to call. Grady Gear Company. Grady Gear Company is a local company that handles large and small custom clothing and apparel orders. I had a lot of questions from color, shirt quality, and what sizes we needed. Grady Gear Company was great to work with. They got us what we needed on time, and now everybody's looking great around the station in their new gear. Start your order at GradyGearCo.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like many of you, I still collect physical books, and not just any books, but books about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. I go to Megas Books and Herbs, located in the Arts District of Minneapolis, but books are only part of it. Megas Books and Herbs offers crystals, jewelry, herbs, oils, and consultations on how to use this stuff. Check out their in-store classes and events too. This place has everything to expand your horizons. Located at 1848 Central Avenue, Minneapolis, or visit megasbooks.com.
The best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
So we are talking about angels tonight, and I see that this is a very lively group, actually, in regards to talking about it. And I'm very I'm very happy to see that, because it's something that's very close to my heart. I had been very ill in 2023 from basically end of March until August. And one of the things that I had requested quite a bit was for Archangel Raphael, who heals, to please heal me. And, you might be like, well, that's a long time to be ill. Well, your mileage may vary on that. The thing is, we're not talking miracles here. We're talking about help. Two different things. All I wanted was to feel better. And when you feel like you're literally going to die, and I don't mean that in a sort of like, it felt like I was going to die. It's more like, I think I'm going to die. So for those who listened to the show when I was weekly at that point, may have noticed that I wasn't around for March or April or most of May. That was because I was ill. And it was, you have to have, and I use this term very carefully, faith. And I don't think it's faith of a religion. It's faith of the power that's going to help you. Does that make sense? And I don't expect everyone to agree with that. This isn't, it's very clear that we're towing the line on highly religious programming here tonight, and that is not my intention. But the two, there is just a thin line that separates the two, and so that's what I'm thinking of. Now, I also, for those who may remember, I would do every Sunday night. I would do something called GhostBox Live. I would take a spirit box. Those devices, paranormal devices that scan through radio frequencies at a very fast rate. The theory is you can talk, ask questions, and you get an answer through the box. The energy from that radio is allowing spirit to talk to you. And I consider myself pretty good at it. And we did one night, and I asked if I could ask Archangel Michael if he could help everybody who is watching tonight, everybody who is watching that GhostBox Live presentation, whatever they need help with, can they help with? And that was it. And I mean, I did it with much more, effort than I just said it as. I had a little intonation to it. And the next day, I kept getting messages from people who watched the night before. My back doesn't hurt anymore. I've had a headache for days. It's gone. I don't know. I don't know what that was. I had about 4 people reach out to me. That's 4 more people than I expected to. There's power there. I believe that there's power there. And I don't mean that in a corruptible sort of way. I mean that there is energy there that is meant to be tapped into, and that you can use it. And I specifically asked for angel energy. So that is very interesting to me, and it will always be very interesting to me. Did I do it the next week? No. Because I also feel like that part of it's like, well, what if it doesn't work this time? I don't want to be like, I want to be able, dare I say, to enjoy the moment that I was able to help people. So that's that. All right. Let's see here. Let's get to some comments here. Lynette says, I feel that I was visited. I'm guessing he was an angel in a human's body. I was at a very low time in my life, and the day that I had the experience, it just stuck with me as being very loving and helped me so much that at that moment in my life, I never saw him again, and I've never forgotten that experience. Isn't that interesting? The idea of having somebody come to you, and if it's an angel, and they just, like we talked in the last segment, I don't need to have wings to help you. What if it's just somebody who was put into Lynette's direction? And is that still angel help? Why not? So, yeah, I don't know. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Lynette. I really appreciate it. Jill says, I remember that particular episode being there in comments. Oh, okay. Yeah. We all felt it helped us, those who are needing it, too, as healing. It works. It works. Angels are real. I think so. I'm glad to. I forgot you were there. And it was beautiful. I mean, I don't do this anymore. I don't do the GhostBox Live thing anymore, only because I'm on 5 nights a week already. It's like Greg needs to sleep once in a while. But boy, do I miss it. Not because of anything other than being able to maybe pull something like that off once in a while. That is, in the next segment, if we get time for it, I want to play an actual piece of audio from one of the GhostBox Lives from Easter 2023. Or 2022. 2022. Let's see, what else do we have here in the comments? And remember, folks, if you have a particular story about an angel interaction, whether you've seen one, they've helped you. What about clouds, right? We've all seen angelic figures or things that look angelic in the clouds. Do we take that as a possible angel? I mean, Paul Douglas will come over here. Meteorologist Paul Douglas will come over here and tell me why that is not an angel, but that's scientific. Sometimes things aren't scientific, though, are they? I don't know. I'm a believer in that stuff. I'm a firm believer. I want to believe. That makes me more susceptible to believing stuff that might be a little bit more outrageous. But at the same time, I also know that we can't explain everything in the universe as well. So, let's see. Just reading through some stuff here. Towie says, you are right about Bible's depiction of angels. They may not have had wings, but not as we identify. I feel we have seen an angel. It presented itself as we see a street light on a snowy night. But that's pretty beautiful. I don't think it helped with anything in particular, but it did reinforce my belief in angels, which I think is, I think that's really cool. Jill says, I feel like these are all angelic symbols. Whatever you see as a visual representation, even in music, when it plays just right time for you, it's all messages. And I think that's an amazing point, actually, Jill. When I was doing the Facebook GhostBox Live, there'd be stuff that goes out that I didn't understand. I didn't hear live in my room with the spirit box. But then somebody who was looking for it, they heard it, and they heard what they needed. Now the question is, did they actually hear something, or did their mind tell them to hear it? And I look at it this way: who cares? They heard what they needed to hear. Are you going to be a monster and try to depict that, someone's father didn't come through? Be like, well, I didn't hear anything. That was wrong. You're just trying to make yourself feel better. No, what you're going to be is like, the way I come about it is, if it resonates for you, then that's all that matters. And because of something like Spirit Box, where I'm playing it here, if you will, in my house. When I was doing it, I was playing in my house, and then people would hear it going through my computer microphone and coming out at their speakers. Then who knows what transpired with the audio between my house and their house. And you might be like, well, that means that it's destroying the signal, or it's changing the signal. Exactly. And if it's coming out to be something that resonates with them, then that's what this is. This is exactly what this is. And I think that is the thing that I find that I think people don't understand. That's when I'm talking about faith, folks. I'm not talking about, and I'm not putting this down, like the 10 Commandments, stuff like that. That's religion. Faith is part of religion. But this faith I'm talking about is to believe that if you're meant to get something, if you're meant to get a message, you're going to get it. Sometimes it's not going to be, billboard size. You're going to have to try to look for it a little bit sometimes. The spirit box in particular, they're not easy to hear all the time. There's a lot of people it comes across as something that is very difficult to hear. But the point being is that if you can believe that the person you're trying to reach out to, whether it be a family member who passed, loved one, angel, whatever, if you believe that they're going to hear you, that they're going to talk to you, you just have to have faith that they will. This is getting a bit preachy, isn't it? My God. I hope you all don't mind. The point is, though, is that that's what we do. For those of you who do paranormal and go to locations every week and it's the same locations and you're going for the thrill, good for you. A lot of us do paranormal so that we are able to have those messages. I am a conduit. I am a conduit when I use Spirit Box. Just like a medium is a conduit. And so those are messages that are meant. Now, Toei says that I think messages can come when least expected. And I would also add to that when most needed. And that's, sometimes, I'm like, that's, fairy book, fairy tale land over here, but I do believe that's the case. And sometimes all it takes is finding a penny on the ground or seeing a dragonfly or something like that, and you know what it means. One of my favorite things are feathers, finding feathers. I've kept every feather I found, every single one I have kept, walking across, finding feathers, looking up what the color of the feather means. When you find it. I even found one of the most elusive ones, a purple one, and that was in Maryland. David says that, no, he doesn't cough. I feel I've seen an angel, more specifically Archangel Michael. I believe it. What I saw was in vision, but I could describe to you exactly what I saw. I don't know if it was trying to get my attention. During that vision, I seen a tower in the clouds. I'm still trying to understand what this was. David, thank you so much for sharing that. That's fantastic. Wow. That's really cool. And I guess the question I have with that is, did that show up for you, David, when you needed it the most? Was that something that you needed to experience? Is that something that helped you greatly, or was it something that just happened and then it still helped you? I'm very curious if you wouldn't mind sharing. Cynthia says, what about different saints? Sometimes I will give a quick help me wrench on my vehicle prayer for a little guidance from my dad or other loved ones. Helps settle me and gives me hope to accomplish my task. I don't know. Let's put it that way. I think, that kind of falls in line with your spirit guides, right? The question someone's asked earlier, like spirit guides, was that you even, Cynthia? Spirit guides, same as angels. And, I think in a way they are kind of like angels, right? I mean, because they're helping us. They're there to help us. And, you have your guardian angel, and you so often, how many times do we hear our guardian angel is a relative of ours? And it's something that I absolutely think that you could put them all into the same thing, and the same bucket, if you will. And I love that too, because I think, Cynthia, one of the things that you picked up on that you talked about here is really important.
You are listening to the best of GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. Remember, you can hear full past episodes, see upcoming events, and order books of the authors we have on the show by going to GhostBoxRadio.com. Don't forget to like us over on Facebook, look us up at GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, and finally, please consider supporting me on Patreon. We have a special, unique audio content
that you'll not find anywhere else, plus special episodes. On Patreon, you can find me as GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.